All right. I think we're in order, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to begin.
Please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's April 7th, 2022 virtual hearing. My name is Nicholas Blendy, and I'm the board's Deputy Executive Secretary. On your screen, you can see an outline of what I'm about to go over for how today's hearings are going to work virtually. First off, I'd like to introduce everyone to the Webex platform. Cisco Webex is the online meeting platform that the City of Baltimore uses to conduct all of its virtual hearings. The Board of Estimates, City Council, and Planning Department have used Webex to hold virtual meetings since the outbreak of COVID-19. Some basics: to fully use the Webex system, members of the general public should have access to a laptop, an iPad, smartphone, or similar device with camera and microphone capabilities. If your electronic device does not have microphone capabilities, then you'll need to use the phone number below to dial in. To participate in today's meeting, members of the public will have had to download the app of Webex through their smartphones, or you can click on the following link, excuse me, to access the hearing online that you see on the screen. It's also available on our website. The access code for the link is 23399025523, and the password is capital BLLC 1234 as numbers. The Liquor Board just suggests that if you're going to use your smartphone, iPad, or similar device, that you download the application at least one day before the date of today's hearing to ensure you have access to the program and any updates that may occur. If any member of the public does not have access to a computer or smartphone or similar device, they can call the following number and enter the access code to listen only to the hearing. And the phone number is 140-841-89388, access code 23399025523. Material evidence and related items for today's docket are all available on our website. Copies of the short docket, which provide a brief description of the cases before the board, and the long docket, which includes any application materials, can be found on our website under hyperlinks with today's date, April 7th, 2022. Evidence, the board observes a 48-hour rule for all online hearings, meaning that all evidence considered by the board can be found in the long docket, and we will accept all evidence from any party to the hearing up until 48 hours before 11 a.m. today, which is any evidence that would have needed to be submitted to meet this deadline must have been submitted no later than 11 a.m. on Tuesday, April 5th. Any evidence submitted to the board later than this date and time will not be considered timely or by the board during the hearing. All evidence should be submitted by email to the Assistant Executive Secretary, Ms. Stacy Russell. Please note we have a new email address for that. It's bllc.hearings@baltimorecity.gov, and the board is not accepting documents for hearings in person. Related items: any amendments to applications made by any applicant or their representative will not be accepted after March 24th for any case to be heard today. If an applicant or his or her representative attempts to amend any application anytime after March 24th, including today, the case will automatically be postponed. In addition to the posting of today's docket online, licensees and applicants will be mailed a letter instructing them the date and time of the virtual hearing. Excuse me one second. Sorry, confirming something with the fun of WebEx, Mr. Chair. Moving on. So today is a mixed docket. The first 5 items are violations, and so the violation case procedures for today's docket are on the screen. Preliminary reading of the instructions and the calling of cases. I will read the preliminary instructions and the general ground rules for the hearing process. I'll then call each case in the order as listed on the short docket. The chair will then ask the licensee, his or her representative, and any BLLC and police department personnel to identify themselves and be sworn in by the court reporter. I will then call the case individually, and the board will conduct an evidentiary hearing, which will include the calling of witnesses, hearing testimony, and reviewing any documents entered into the record to determine whether or not a violation occurred. Upon conclusion of the hearing, which may include closing arguments by the licensee and or his or her representative, the board will vote to determine whether a violation occurred or not. If the board finds a violation occurred, the board may then hear testimony or review evidence before imposing a sentence. The board provide an opportunity to the general public to present this testimony at the mitigation phase of the hearing, and I will ask at the chair's order if any individual likes to testify, and I will ask you to use the raise your hand feature in WebEx, which is at the bottom. It looks like a hand that you push. You'll then be recognized. You can identify identify yourself, be sworn in by the court reporter, and then testify. Just a reminder, all individuals who testify are subject to questioning by the board and cross-examination by the attorney or the applicant. And remember, if you have access only to a phone, you will not have opportunity to testify. If a violation is found to have occurred, the board will then move on to sentencing. And after they hear all of the evidence and testimony from mitigation, the board will make a determination of a sentence, which could include a fine, a suspension of a license, and/or a revocation of a license. Then after the violations docket, we'll move on to the regular case proceedings for today's docket, which are all transfer hardship extensions. I will read preliminary instructions and general ground rules, which I'm doing right now. I'll then call the case as the order listed on the short docket and the regular portion of the docket. I'll then ask the applicant and his or her representative to identify themselves and, if applicable, have any witnesses or the applicant sworn in. The board will then provide an opportunity for the applicant or his or her representative to present their case. The board may ask questions of the attorney or the applicant at the conclusion of the case. The chair will ask individuals, similar to how I mentioned before, who are on the call and who have access to the correct technology, if they would like to testify in support or opposition to the application. Again, if you would like to testify, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom. You'll be recognized, you can identify yourself, you'll be sworn in, and then you can testify. All individuals who testify are subject to questioning by the board and potentially cross-examination by an attorney or their applicant. And remember, if you have access only to a phone, you will not have the opportunity to testify. After all testimony and evidence is presented to the board will vote on the application before them. Our Assistant Executive Secretary shall then read exhibits into the record. Lastly, the board's not authorized to discuss any non-case related matters today. It's sitting in its quasi-judicial capacity and authorized only to hear testimony and evidence related to the cases before it on today's docket, and not authorized to discuss any policy matter or any other cases. Some general ground rules: please mute yourself when you're not speaking to minimize feedback and extra noise. Please identify yourself and state the spelling of your name before you speak. Please speak slowly and in a clear voice so that the court reporter understands exactly what's being said and who is saying it. Please note this event is running live on Charm TV, and also that we have a court reporter present. Any individual who uses profanity, is disrespectful or unruly may be expelled from the hearing. All attendees, applicants, licensees, and members of the public that wish to provide testimony during the hearings must be sworn in by the court reporter prior to giving testimony. No physical evidence is being taken today, and absolutely no amendments to the application in the regular portion of the hearing may be made today. Lastly, some helpful reminders for Webex. Please be prepared and have read all the materials ahead of time. Test the video conferencing platform as well. Find a good location that's a quiet space with some good lighting and a good internet connection so you can be seen and heard clearly. Please be present and not be multitasking. And always, we ask that everyone be patient with themselves and others during today's virtual proceedings. The short docket is on the screen, Mr. Chair. And do you have any matters you wish to address before we move in?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right, we will do so. Then the first matter on today's docket is on the violations docket. I'm moving counsel into the room. This matter is a licensee Uzo Nwosu and Obefule Uwadenike, Uzo LLC, trading as Goodfellas Lounge. Premises are located at 4919 Blair Road. This is a Class B beer, wine, and liquor license alleged to have violated one of the board's rules, violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, stemming from one incident on February 10th, 2022. Mr. Kadensky and all BLLC and vice and cadet witnesses are here. Mr. Kadensky's counsel, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kadensky, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
For the record, Melvin J. Kadensky, representing the licensee. When Mr. Plenty says one of the rules, he sounds like he was disappointed.
I don't know.
This would be an admission.
An admission. All right. Do you want to proffer for us?
Yeah, this was the place has had a history, as you see, but not with regard to serving minors. At the time, the individual was there was was careless. Let's put it the easiest way we could say it. And since that time, they've made the mind up that everybody that's there, one of the individuals is with me, you may be able to see him, that they check everybody, no matter who it is, and get their proof of age and proof of majority. Like I say, it's not a kind of place that had a history for serving minors. That their problem was more regarding staying open after the hours, but they're finished with that. They haven't been before the board since back in 2020.
Commissioners have any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Do you have anyone else who wishes to testify? Mr. Bundy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. Mr. Chair, no one has raised their hand.
All right. Okay, Mr. Kennedy, on the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents, as well as your proffer, which includes an admission on behalf of your client, I find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a, sales to minors on February 10, 2022. In light of the history, I'd impose a $500 fine and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the testimony provided today, I agree with the chair's findings of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, and the fine of $500.
Based upon the charging document and the admission, I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on February 10th, 2022, and concur with the imposition of a $500 fine. I also encourage Mr. Kudinski, your client, to reach out and connect with Mr. Ockheimer. There seems to be some other issues. We got some exhibits and information sent from someone in the community with other concerns, and would strongly encourage that Mr. Ockheimer work with you in the community to address those issues.
All right, I will do that. I will do that.
I agree with Commissioner Greenfield. We did receive something, and you know, if you want to head off a protest, this is a time to get involved. Thank
Agree.
you. Mrs. Russell?
Yes, medical exhibits for the record. For Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective LeBron. Exhibit number 2, investigation report, Inspector Ted Hope. 3, email in opposition dated 4/4/22.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
That concludes this matter before the board. Licensee will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with instructions on how to pay the fines imposed by the board today and any fees that are attendant to them. Next matter, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Kudinski, what is the name of the person who was with you?
Do you want to state your name, that's for the record?
Rocky. Oh, Namso.
Numso. Rocky Numso.
Oh.
There's no
Can you spell
testimony
that?
from him.
Yeah. Can you spell that though, just so I have?
Rocky, Rocky,
Yeah, and the last name?
Nmuso.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Rocky is leaving the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then the next item on today's docket, item number 2 in the violations section, licensee Ashley Orifice and Prakash Pudel, Mankamana LLC, trading as Belair Discount Liquors. Premises are located at 3600 Belair Road. License is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license. The licensee is charged with 1 violations of the board's rules stemming from 1 incident on February 10th, 2022, and that is a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors. All witnesses are in the room, and Mr. Kudinski is counsel, and Mr. Pudel is also here. Mr. Chair.
Again, Mr. Kudinski, please.
For the record, Melvin J. Kudinski, representing the licensee in this case, who is joined through his own device, and this would be also an admission.
Okay, you may proceed.
This is a place where this individual has been at this location since 2018. This is the first offense. It's a small place. The problem with a lot of people are just eager to do business after the pandemic, but it's no excuse. Since he was there, he's forewarned at this point and knows to check every person that comes in with their cards to make sure they're old enough for the age of majority. And I've explained to them that they will not trick them. Sometimes people think they're going to try to trick them. If they ask them and they don't have it, then they'll leave. So the better course of action is always to ask for proof of age.
Okay. Do commissioners have questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Anyone else, Mr. Bundy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents and Mr. Kudensky's proffer, which included an admission on behalf of his client, I find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a on February 10, 2022. I'd impose a $500 fine and give him 30 days to pay. Commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the testimony provided today, I also agree with the chair's findings of violation Rule 4.01 A, sales to minors on February 10th, 2022, and a fine of $500.
Based upon the charging document, the admission, I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A on February 10, 2022, and concur with the imposition of a $500 fine.
Ms. Russell?
Medical exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, investigation report, Inspector Ted Hope. Board Exhibit 2, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective LeBron.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kudensky.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That concludes this matter before the board. Licensee will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with instructions on how to pay the fine imposed today and any attendant fees that go along with that. The next matter, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe this is not Mr. Kudensky's client because the licensee is here. The next matter, actually, let me move Ms. Blackwell in. The next matter before the board today, item number 3 on the violations docket, licensee Vernita J. Blackwell and Roshana Hamagain, New Burgers Incorporated, trading as Burgers Tavern. Premises are located at 5523 Belair Road. Licensee holds a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license and is charged with 1 violation of the board's rules stemming from 1 incident on February 10th, 2022, which is a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors. Licensee Vernita Blackwell is in the room and is unrepresented to my belief, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Blackwell. Would you raise your right hand, please? Is she there?
Let me attempt.
Wait, here you go. I'm here.
Okay. We have to swear you in, ma'am. So would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure I can.
And if you see a start video button, Ms.
hold on.
Blackwell, you might have to push the start video button.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Blackwell. So you're charged with this sale to minor on February 10th. Do you wish to admit and explain it or deny it?
No, admission of guilt.
Okay. You want to tell us what happened?
Yeah. So I always strive to stress the importance of carding everyone that comes in the bar and the carry out. And I believe that this was just a slip through, an honest mistake. And so since that time, we have definitely reached out to people for consultation, for coaching, as well as training. And we're hoping to send everyone through the alcohol awareness program so that they're certified and they understand the importance of carding individuals that come through the carry out.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for Ms. Blackwell?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there anyone else who wishes to provide evidence?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Thank Ms. Blackwell. On the basis then of the materials contained in the charging documents and your testimony, including your admission, I find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a, sale to minor on February 10, 2022. You haven't had this very long, and this is your first offense, so I would impose a $250 fine and give you 30 days to pay, and remind you to please be very careful.
Thank you so much.
Commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, based on testimony provided today, I agree with the chair findings, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sale to minors on February 10th, 2022, and the fine of $250.
Based upon the charging document, the admission, I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A on February 10, 2022, and concur with the imposition of a $250 fine.
Ms. Russell?
Medical exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, investigation report, Inspector Ted Hope. Board Exhibit 2, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Gatto.
Thank you, Ms. Blackwell. We appreciate your
Thank
honesty.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That concludes this matter before the board. Licensee will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with instructions on how to pay the fine imposed today, as well as any administrative fees that are attendant to that. Then, Mr. Chair, are we ready to move to the next matter?
We are.
Then item number 4 on the violations docket is licensee Carrie Everett and Carol Smith, 4200 Parkside Blair, Inc., trading as Slim Ace of Club. Premises are located at 4200 Blair Road. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. Licensee is charged with 1 violation of the board's rules, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, stemming from 1 incident on February the 10th, 2022. Mr. Kadensky is counsel, Mr. Chair.
Good morning again, Mr. Knessy. Would you identify yourself, please?
Good morning. For the record, Melvin J. Kaninsky, representing the licensee. This would be an admission.
Okay.
Basically, this is an place that it's right next to the park there, and been there for a good while. And it seems like they have like a 2-year reoccurrence of items that happen. And I've talked to the licensees, one of which is with me, to be more diligent about the situation. That this situation can't be allowed to go forward because it has its consequences, as we're before the board again. But they've tried to get all their employees to make sure that they check everybody, even people that may look familiar to them, and hopefully this will be the last time you'll see them on this matter.
And who is with you today, Mr. Kadensky?
Carl Milton Smith Jr.
Okay, I just wanted the record needs to reflect. So it's Carroll Smith.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Commissioners have any questions?
No,
No questions, Mr. Chair.
No questions.
Anyone else, Mr. Blendy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr.
Hi, Mr. Kadensky. On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents and your proffer, which includes an admission on behalf of your client, I find a Rule 4.01A sale to minor violation on February 10, 2022. In light of the record, this being the 3rd offense, I'd impose a $750 fine and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, based on testimony provided today, I agree with the chair findings. A violation of Rule 4.01A sale to minors on February 10th, 2022, and a $750 fine.
Based upon the charging document and the admission, I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A on February 10, 2022, and concur with the imposition of a $750 fine.
Ms. Russell?
I pose it for the record. Board Exhibit number 1, investigation report, Inspector Jordan. Board Exhibit 2, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective LeBron.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kadensky.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That concludes this matter before the board. Licensee will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with instructions on how to pay the fine imposed today, as well as any administrative fees that may be attendant to that. Mr. Kadensky, do you have the next matter?
No, I do not.
Right.
I'll have the ones on the other docket. That's
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then, Mr. Chair, the next matter I do not believe is in attendance, but I'm happy to call the case if you wish.
Well, if we don't have anybody, let's come back to it. Let's go to the next thing.
Okay, then we will move out of order per the board's and the chair's order, and we will call item number 5 at the end of the violations docket at the end, and we will move on to the regular docket. So then, skipping forward to the regular items, the next matter before the board this morning is licensee or applicant Raveen Silwal and Han Yang, Yang's LLC, trading as Broadway Liquor. Premises are located at 1645 East Baltimore Street, and this is a request for a transfer hardship extension under the provisions of the Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1705B for 90 days of a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license. Mr. Hurdle is counsel on this and is moved into the room, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Hurdle. Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Good morning, Abraham Hurdle on behalf of Yang's LLC, 1645 East Baltimore Street.
Good morning. We have your letter, and could you fill us in on what's going on, please?
We were just struggling to get some of the permitting issues resolved. And it just needed some more time. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. Do the commissioners have any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay. Anyone else, Mr. Blendy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hurdle, on the basis then of your proffer, your letter of March 10, and the information provided today, I would vote to approve a 90-day transfer hardship extension as requested. Commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the testimony provided today, I approve the request for a transfer hardship extension for 90 days.
Based on the proffer in the March 10, 2022 letter from Mr. Hurdle, I too would grant the request for a transfer hardship extension for 90 days.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
No exhibits for the record.
All right.
Thank you,
Mr. Hurdle.
commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Blendy.
Thank you, Mr. Hurdle. That concludes this matter before the board. Council and applicant will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with the results of today's proceedings. Shall we move forward then, Mr. Chairman?
Let's do it.
Then the next item on the regular docket is applicant Seth Peachert, 760 Lighthouse Point LLC, trading as raw and refined. Premises are located at 2701 Boston Street. And this again is a transfer hardship extension request of 90 days under the provisions of Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1705B of a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. Mr. Woolman is counsel on this one, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Woolman. Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
760 Lighthouse Point LLC.
I think there was an email you sent to the board requesting this extension. Can you tell us what's going on here?
Not unlike the previous matter, we had some pandemic-related issues regarding permitting, some disconnects with your office on a few things. And my understanding, Mr. Blendy may be able to confirm, I think we have everything resolved, and a 90-day extension would be more than necessary. I think we'll have this license hopefully issued any day now. I think we've addressed everything, but technically, in order to preserve the license, we needed the hardship extension.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Other testimony, Mr. Blendy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Woolman, on the basis then of your email of February 28, 2022, and your proffer this morning, I would vote to approve a 90-day transfer hardship extension for this license. Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the testimony and the email provided today, I also approve the request for a transfer hardship extension of 90 days.
Based upon the proffer, the email of February 28th, 2022, I too grant the request for a transfer hardship extension for 90 days.
Ms. Russell?
No exhibits for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Woolman. Good luck to your client.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Nice to see everyone.
That concludes this matter before the board. Council and applicant will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with the results of today's proceedings. Shall we move forward, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Then the next two matters are postponed at the request of council. So moving forward to item number 5 on the regular items is, excuse me, applicant James Randall Biss Jr. and Alana Marie Ruiz, Mi Canton Incorporated, trading as Mi Canton Restaurant. Premises are located at 2629 Washington Boulevard. And this is another request for a 90-day transfer hardship extension under the provisions of Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1705B, in this case, a Class B beer, wine, and liquor license. Mr. Kadensky is counsel.
Mr. Kadensky, could you identify yourself one more time, please?
For the record, Melvin J. Kaninsky representing the licensee applicants here. This is similar to the other two. They're probably 1 or 2 items away from completing this. And I think probably 90 days is indicated, like Mr. Wellman, will be more than enough. I would think within the next 30 days, but like have 90 days because sometimes it's tough to get a hold of some of the people, but I think definitely within the 90 days, they'll be complete.
Okay, commissioners have any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Anyone else, Mr. Blendy?
If any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Cadency, on the basis of your letter to the board of March 21, 2022, and your proffer this morning, I vote to approve a 90-day transfer hardship extension for this license. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, based on the testimony provided today, I also approve the request for a transfer hardship extension of 90 days.
Based upon the proffer in the March 21st letter, I too would grant the request for a transfer hardship extension for 90 days.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
No exhibits for the record.
All right, thanks, Mr. Cadency.
Thank you.
That concludes this matter before the board. Licensee and council will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with results of today's proceedings. The next matter, Mr. Chair.
Please.
All right, then the final item on the regular portion of the docket, item number 6, applicant Thomas Bennett Jr. and Reggie Ware II, Bar Elite LLC, trading as Bar Elite. Premises are located at 1571 Ridgely Street. This is another request for a 90-day transfer hardship extension under the provisions of Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1705B. In this case, a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license. Mr. Kadensky is counsel again, Mr. Chair.
One last time, Mr. Cadency, please.
Yeah. Maybe not the last time, I hope, for today.
For today, I mean.
For the record, Melvin J. Kadensky representing the applicants. Mr. Ware is here with me today. This is, he's here today to go down and get his trader's license, one or two other small items to finish this thing up. However, you know, and to be safe, we'd like to have the 90-day extension.
Commissioners?
No questions.
No questions.
Anyone else? Mr. Blendy?
Any member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cadency, on the basis of your letter of March 1, 2022 to the board, as well as your proffer this morning, I vote to approve a 90-day transfer hardship extension for this licensee. Commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the testimony provided today, I also approve the request for a transfer hardship extension of 90 days.
Based upon the proffer in the March 1st, 2022 letter, I too would approve the request for a transfer hardship extension for 90 days.
Ms. Russell?
No exhibits for the record.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cadency. Good luck to your client.
Thank you very much.
That concludes this matter before the board. Council and applicant will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with the results of today's proceedings. Shall we move back to?
Yes, let's
Mr.
return to that case.
All right. Well, we will recall. Well, I never called it, but and all of the witnesses from our side are here. This is item number 5 on the violations docket. Licensee Rajpal Singh Grawal, 5401 Blair Inc., trading as Garden Liquor. Premises are located at 5401 Blair Road. Licensee holds a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license and is charged with violating one of the board's rules from one incident on February 10th, 2022, and that is a violation of Rule 4.01 little a, sales to minors. Mr. Chair, the cadets are here. Carrington is in the panel. Randall is also here, but I cannot move her into the panel for whatever reason, but she is here and could testify. And it appears that Inspector Jordan is the primary on the liquor board, and we have Detectives Gatto and LeBron and are all here.
Are we certain that there's no one here on behalf of the licensee?
Excuse me, if anyone is here on behalf of the licensee for the case I just called, please either raise your hand in the WebEx platform, use the chat, and let me know. It does not appear, Mr. Chair. I do not recognize.
Okay. Ms. Russell, do we have service on the licensee?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, let's proceed then. Let's swear in Inspector Jordan.
Inspector Jordan, if you can just raise your right hand and turn on your video, please. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Thanks. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Inspector Jordan, can you tell us what you observed on February 10, 2022?
Sure. So on February 10th, 2022, members of the Liquor Board, being myself, Inspector Todd Hope, and Chief Inspector Chris O'Malley, along with members of Vice and two cadets who were under the age of 21, at approximately 9:30 p.m., the cadets entered the establishment known as Garden Liquors, located at 5401 Bella Road. At this time, the cadets, they were successful in purchasing two 50-milliliter bottles of Fireball for a total of $5, utilizing a $20 bill. And they purchased it from the named establishment. Following the purchase, the cadets exited the establishment carrying the alcoholic beverage. Members of Baltimore Police Department Vice Unit and the Liquor Board entered the establishment and made contact with the seller, who identified himself as Harjit Singh, date of birth being 3/5/55. Baltimore Police Department Vice Unit and the Liquor Board members informed Mr. Singh that he had sold alcohol to an underage police cadet. The alcoholic beverage and change were returned to the establishment, and the $20 bill was recovered. Baltimore Police Department and the Vice Unit and the Liquor Board members informed Mr. Singh that he would not be criminally charged. However, a violation report would be written for the establishment, and we departed without any incident.
I just want to note that there might be a typo in your report because you say you entered at 9:30, but they were served at 8:45. So that doesn't seem right. But otherwise, your testimony is fine. Commissioners have any questions for the inspector?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there other testimony, Mr. Blendy?
If the board wishes to hear, we do have members of Vice and the cadets who are in attendance. If
I
the
don't
board,
need them.
No.
I don't know if the commissioners, does anybody want to hear from them? I don't think so.
Then if any other member of the public wishes to testify on this matter, please use the raise your hand feature in the Webex platform. No one has raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
I have one last question for the inspector. Was Mr. Singh compliant and cooperative with you?
Yes, from what I recall, he was.
All right. Thank you. On the basis then of the materials contained in the charging documents and the testimony received today, I find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a, sale to minor, on February 10, 2022. This is the third offense for this licensee, so I'd impose a $750 fine and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Chair, was that $750 you stated?
Yes, that's what I said.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, based on testimony provided today, I also agree with the chair findings. A violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, on February 10th, 2022, and the fine of $750.
Based upon the charging document and the testimony, I too would find a violation of Rule 4.01A on February 10, 2022, and concur with the imposition of a $750 fine.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Mike Joseph for the record. Board Exhibit number 1, investigation report, Inspector Jordan. Board Exhibit 2, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Gatto.
Thank you. I believe that concludes our docket, Mr. Blendy.
It does, Mr. Chair. That concludes this matter before the board, and the licensee will receive follow-up correspondence from this agency with the results of today's proceedings. A fine that was imposed by the board today with instructions on how to pay it and any fees that are attendant to it. And that is, in fact, the last matter on the docket today, Mr. Chair.
All right, do you want to read the adjournment then?
Yes, sir. The board will be in recess until April 14th, 2022. The board shall post on its website, provide notice to the applicants and/or attorneys, and conduct a virtual hearing on this date. Please call our office at 410-396-4377 between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. with any questions or concerns you have on these matters or any other. That's all we have for the chair and the commissioners, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bundy. I want to thank the commissioners and the liquor board staff and everyone who participated today. Have a pleasant rest of the day, and we will see you next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You good, Ms. Baranowski?
Yes, we are off the record.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.